Hey guys, how you doing? Hope everything's going well. So, if you haven't heard and you're not a huge comic book nerd like me or Batman fan, then you might not have. But Warner Brothers has announced that Robert Pattinson will not be the Batman for the DCU. And again, for all of us huge Batman fans, this is a big deal because that insinuates that there will be a new actor cast as Batman for the DCU and future projects that will be in that interconnected universe. Here at the third floor, we definitely appreciate that because we loved the Batman film by Matt Reeves that came out in 2022, and the Penguin series, and just that entire world that he's created. And it really would be a shame if he was tethered down or restricted due to the confines of operating in an interconnected universe such as like the MCU or DCU. So with all that being said, we are very excited for the new Batman and how it could be distinct and distinguish itself from the Robert Pattinson universe. So I'll be breaking down how I believe this new Batman could be different from the Robert Pattinson version, and then casting some of the members of the Bat family. Let me know down in the comments what your thoughts are. If you agree with what I'm saying, if you don't, who would you cast? What do you want to see? Let's get into it. So it's already been set that the newest Batman film in the DCU is going to be called The Brave and the Bold. And that's how I'll be referring to it moving forward. And it's the story basically, we don't have a lot of information, but we know it's going to include Damian Wayne, who's Batman's biological son. And obviously that implies there will be Robins and thus Nightwing or Dick Grayson, whoever, in the storyline. And that makes me really excited because I think this could be a great way to separate a more established and interconnected Batman in an ensemble film focused on the Bat family with The Brave and the Bold, which could be very different for casual audiences to separate it from the more detective noir and young Bruce Wayne we see in Matt Reeves' The Batman. And one really smart way I think they could go about doing this is leaning into the more fantastical elements that, again, would just be so different than what we've seen in the Dark Knight trilogy or the more grounded Matt Reeves universe, by having characters like Clayface, which we already know is getting his own film, or, Killer Croc, Poison Ivy, these characters that have more supernatural abilities. I think that we might not see in a Matt Reeves film would obviously be great villains for this new fantastical world of The Brave and the Bold that has characters like Superman that can fly and Martian Manhunter. So it's not a far reach to show having these fantastical supernatural elements. And one other way I would differentiate these two franchises is by having a big, imposing brawler Batman, like we got in with Ben Affleck's interpretation. Or if you're familiar, the Arkham trilogy games that had some of the best action sequences and just the cutscenes, honestly. But the games themselves were fantastic. I think there's some of the best interpretations of The Dark Knight. If you haven't played them, stop what you're doing, go play them, and come back. But seriously, I loved how they created this universe in these games, and I would take from them, and they would be inspired heavily into the movies or the franchise for the DCU, how I think Batman should be in the DCU. All right, now that we've gone over the tone, let's get into casting for the Bat family. And again, if you disagree with these, let me know in the comments who you would like to see or why you disagree. Again, we appreciate any support you can, and we promise to do our best to respond to all your comments. We will be starting with the easiest castings, in my opinion, and then moving forward into the more controversial ones as we go, ending with Batman himself. All right, the first casting, his name is Wolfgang Novogratz. I know he's a lesser-known actor, but I was watching this horror movie the other night on Netflix called, Tarot, the cards. And the movie was terrible, but he was great in it. And the entire time I was watching, I just couldn't stop thinking to myself, this guy looks like Dick Grayson, Nightwing, brought to real life. He's the right age, and I think he can be witty and charismatic enough to be likable for the character. And also, I like the fact that he's lesser known because it will help the audience immerse themselves in the character rather than if you just see Dwayne Johnson in the movie, you only see Dwayne Johnson. You don't know who this guy is, so he's automatically Dick Grayson to you. All right, the next one, again, this is an easy one. Bryan Cranston as Commissioner Jim Gordon. This is not a hot take, but I think it's a great choice nonetheless. Bryan Cranston's a phenomenal actor, and he's already voiced Jim Gordon in an animated movie a couple years ago, so he has a connection to the character. Again, he's the right age, and I just think he would crush in any role, but I'd like to see him play this character. Next up for Batgirl, again, the last easy one, we have Zoe Dutch. I really hope I'm saying her name right. But yeah, she's around the same age as the Wolfgang, the Nightwing actor. So I like the fact that they could both be post-college, mid-20s, moving on from working with Bruce and Batman, and that opens up their own storylines later on, like a Teen Titans movie for Nightwing and whatever they want to do. But yeah, I think she was great in Zombieland a few years ago. A little lesser known, but again, I like that for these characters because the actors, I mean, we see them immersing themselves in the character. But yeah, all right, let's get into some of the harder ones. So when casting Red Hood or Jason Todd, it was probably the hardest choice out of all of these just because I think he's a very complex character. Obviously, being the Robin that never fit in, suffered the most. He was murdered by the Joker and then came back to life as an anti-hero who kills crime with a giant chip on his shoulder. I really think Jason's interesting because he grew up in a poor home with a drug-addicted mother, and he never had that silver spoon in his mouth like Bruce Wayne or even Dick Grayson. And really, he can empathize with the criminals a lot more, or sympathize with them, because he grew up from that environment. And if it wasn't for Batman mentoring him, he could have easily became one of the same criminals that he fights every night. So I wanted an actor that could convey that chip on their shoulder, getting like beat down by life mentality. And as I was thinking about this video, I remembered the movie The Iron Claw, which is a great film about a group of brothers fighting for the attention and love of their father through wrestling and through sports. And there's this fantastic actor named Jeremy Allen White. And if you haven't seen the show The Bear, he also stars in that, which is a great series. And he does a phenomenal job of conveying that chip on his shoulder that I'm looking for.
And I think that flipped this switch in me where I was like, okay, fuck you, watch this.
I think that clip from The Bear perfectly encapsulates everything I'm looking for in a Jason Todd, or the attitude he has. And obviously the guy's in great shape. And yeah, I just think he'd be great for the role. Let me know, do you agree, do you disagree? And let's get into casting Batman. I just want to say, regardless of who they do cast, I just want to see a comic-accurate suit with the white eyes, maybe the dark navy blue cowl and cape with the gray suit, and some yellow around the trim of the symbol, as well as a utility belt. If it can work for Wolverine and Deadpool and all these other films, the comic-accurate suit can work for Batman. I think now's the time to do it, to, again, separate it from Robert Pattinson's Batsuit. All right, without further ado, the Batman for the DCU I'd love to see is Alan Ritchson. For those of you that know, those of us that know, he was, of course, the Goat House King with playing Thad Castle in Blue Mountain State. A once-in-a-lifetime role that he crushed, so let's give him another. He also stars in Reacher, which is a great series on Amazon, where he kicks a lot of ass and plays a much more serious detective role, which convinced me that he has the caliber to do something like this. A lot of people argue that he's too goofy or lighthearted to play the character. I would argue that Robert Pattinson and Matt Reeves have the more complex psychological, like emo version of Bruce Wayne down in their universe. And for this universe that's based around the Bat family and his roles in Justice League, he'll mostly be in ensemble films where the focus won't be on him. And therefore, I think Alan Ritchson could really do a great job because he has great presence. Obviously, he's a massive dude in very good shape. And that's also important because David Cornsweet is 6'4". So we need an actor who is around that same height. So that way Batman and Superman, one of them isn't, outshadowing the other one physically. And so obviously Alan Ritchson, big guy. I believe he's 6'3", 6'4". So that could work perfectly. And also, he seems very committed to playing the role. He's been very outspoken, even saying you won't even need to pay him to play Batman, which I love to see. In that, as much as I love Robert Pattinson as Batman, he clearly has a busy schedule, starring in 4 or 5 movies a year, Oscar-worthy movies, where I think an actor like Ritchson would really dedicate his full schedule to playing Batman, and we could get 6, 8, 10, who knows how many movies out of him over the next 10, 12 years. Because obviously it's important that we get an actor that's committed to playing the role and starring in a movie like every other year if he's going to be in Batman solo films, as well as Justice League films, as well as guest star in other DCU projects. I think Ritchson has what it takes and is the right man for the job. He seems committed. I'd like to give him a shot. But again, what do you guys think? Thank you so much for listening. If you disagree with this, let me know in the comments. Who do you want to see? There's no wrong answer. But yeah, thank you so much for listening. And we hope to make a Brave and the Bold pitch for our DCU pre-write series. That should be coming soon. We're working on that. let us know what do you guys want to see from that. We'll do our best to include it. And yeah, have a great day, guys. See you next time.